grateful to be working with you on this exhibit and that you live locally and are able to be here with us tonight.
It is on. Hello. I'm Charles Vess, and I've been making a living off of art for about 45 years. Sometimes it was skimpy. Laundry in the bathtub, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for so many days, so many months. But it's better now. Much better. This is a piece I did about 10 or 15 years ago, but I just thought I'd start. There. Okay. So I grew up in Lynchburg, Virginia. I was born in 1951, and I was there for 18 years. And there were no real bookstores. There was one newsstand. There was no museums. There was an art club. There was really nothing that I wanted. Nice people, really, loved my mom and dad. But she had in her collection this very book, that's suffered through the years. It was the first thing I ever knew about looking at art. Back then, of course, there wasn't any internet, there was no Google, you couldn't look up things. Art books were usually just massive volumes on fine artists, and I wanted other things. This was a whole book about artists, and then it came with little, I call them postcards, but they're on really thin paper with really crappy reproduction. But this is how I was learning about art. This is a painting of Joan of Arc. It's actually in the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Jean Baptiste page. And it's maybe 12 feet across, 8 or 9 feet high. It's a very, very large painting. I spent a lot of hours when I lived in New York City staring at this painting. It's wonderful. I just couldn't believe it looked so much better than this bad reproduction. So each one was also accompanied with the story of the artist. This was the only way I was going to learn about most of the work in this collection is not what I would call masterpieces of art, but it was interesting to go from, back. But every Sunday in the newspaper, the first thing I would look at, I'd open up the Sunday supplement and look at Hal Foster, because I was just fascinated with the drawing. And this ran from 1937. It's still going today, but Hal Foster, who created it, wrote it, illustrated it, worked on it up until 1980, I think. It's quite something. Also, you didn't have streaming, you didn't have videotapes, you didn't have anything. Every 7 years, one of the big films from Disney would come around and they'd show it at the movie theater downtown, at the Warners or the Paramount Theater. And that's when you got to look at it. And of course, we didn't have much money, and I was only making money by mowing lawns. I really couldn't see it very often, but it was fantasy. So I was totally Pinocchio was another one. Really brilliant. Both of these were very influenced by illustrators that I found out later, Gustav Tengren. And then every month, my dad would collect my brother and I, and we would go off to get our hair cut in the county because it was cheaper. And it was across the street from where an uncle had a business, gas station, and he would always give us a pop to drink. And I would read the stories, and at that point, none of these were, nobody signed the art. You didn't know who did it. But this was the good duck artists, because if you read enough of the Donald Duck, Uncle Scrooge things, you realize that there was one person that was really good, and you could tell his story. And this is a fascinating story about, it's a long it goes to the Andes and finds a civilization with square eggs. And they're put in jail because the nephews blow bubbles and they're round. And that's unlawful. It's really fascinating story. There's also at the barbershop with these really cool covers. Not so good interior inside. But there's also the story in the back was the Brothers of the Spear, and this is the 1950s, early 60s, and this is a mythical civilization in Africa where there's a white man and a black man, and they consider themselves brothers, and they have all these adventures, which was very forward thinking. This is one of the stories from Brothers of the Spear. This is actually when I read it when I was a kid, but I went back and found it, bought it, owned it, the comic book is from, and realized how much of an influence this was on my art. The pages preceding this were the two brothers crawling through these caves with really tight spaces, and suddenly you turn the page and there was this great expanse. It was really cool. And then, so we're getting up to about 10 or 11, and the more lurid it is, the better it is at that point. And so there were the Tarzan movies, and they were showing on TV, black and white TV sets, so it didn't matter. It's like we watched Wizard of Oz. It didn't change color, it's all black and white. First time I saw it in New York City on a big screen, I went, oh my God, look at that. But anyway, Tarzan was great. On the books, Edgar Rice Burroughs had written the character. That my parents would buy me one for Christmas and one for my birthday. So 2 a year I would read. At the same time, I think, did we just skip something? No. Again, you want, as a 14-year-old, 12-year-old, you want something lurid, and women with boom. So this was really interesting. It also was, I had been growing up reading Greek mythology, so it kind of fed into that. I just laughed at this when I see it. That's Kirk Douglas. Not his finest moment. And there's one of them where he blinds. They're trapped on the island, and the big Cyclops is there with really bad makeup. Even as a young kid, I knew it was bad makeup. And they're getting him drunk because they want to kill him or get out of there. And he's yelling, "More wine for Polyphemus, son of Neptune," which has been in my brain ever since. And this is the Jones Memorial Library in Lynchburg, Virginia. The building is still there. It's like an Italianate. It's all marble. It's really pretty. It's a private library, and I didn't discover until much later that when you walk to the children's section, which is around the back, you went past a statue of a Confederate officer, and it was Jones dressed up as a Confederate officer, and it was a whites-only library, which I didn't know at the time. Lord. And then eventually I graduated to being an adult, and I would go upstairs, and all the books were, they had that fake leather binding, if you remember that, with gold stamping of the title. But that meant there was no cover art to look at to go, oh, that might have a spaceship in it. Maybe I'd read that one. It was very difficult, and I was too shy to ask the librarians. So, discovered Edith Hamilton and her tales of Greek mythology. Come back here. This artist did all the illustrations. His improbable name is Steel Savage. You know, I don't know. I should look it up on Wikipedia or something. Go, is that real? Is that really his name? But these are some of the pieces. But I didn't know anything other than Greek and Roman mythology. For anyone that knows, that's Leo and Diane Dillon did the cover. So they were a pretty famous artistic couple. But I'd read the Odyssey twice before I got to high school. And so I knew more than the teacher did, because they probably read it the day before, the week before. And I had to answer wrong on the test because she had proclaimed that it took 20 years to Troy and 20 years to get back. And I was like, I tried to tell her, no, it's only 10 years. She wouldn't believe me. Anyway, okay, still 14, 15, 16. Here you are. This is Frank Frazetta. I started discovering he was doing the covers to lots and lots of the covers, books, Egg Rice Burroughs, so I was still following up on that. And then this is actually the very first book I ever bought. It was in a drugstore in downtown Lynchburg, Virginia. And I just remember falling into that visual space. You could just wander on back into there, go around. The artist's name is Roy Krinkle. I've got lots of art books on it at this point. Oh! So again, Frank Frazetta. This is my copy of that. And there was an art contest and I submitted it. It was Hallmark. I just laugh about that going, what did these people from Hallmark think when they saw this giant demon? But there you go. Do what you do. And then there's Conan. There's me trying to do Conan. This was done in high school. Oh. It's done on yellow paper. It's the only paper I know that's gotten whiter over time. I got it from Sears. There was no art store in town, so got it from Sears. And it was done with a brush that I cut down to about 8 bristles and inked with it. Wow. So, and I saw this at the newsstand. You know, it was Frank Frazetta, but then there's this guy, Ray Bradbury, and I went, who's that? I don't know who that is. So I read some of the stories. There were comic book adaptations of his short stories and enjoyed them. And then started reading all the Ray Bradbury I could find. Dandelion Wine is a beautiful, beautiful novel. And then years and years go by. I'm at San Diego Comic-Con and I'm selling copies of this Circle Chess book, and this snowy-haired gent in a wheelchair comes by and wants to buy it. And I'm starting to go, I think I know who that is. And Kara's elbow in my ribs. I went, oh, that's Ray Bradbury. So that was very cool. We corresponded for a while. First comic book, this is the first one I ever bought, number 6. I'd read the Donald Ducks and I'd read the Tarzans, but it was Fantastic Four. That one I had to own. Don't ask me why. It was pretty fun though. So I bought that down in the newsstand. Spider-Man, got into Spider-Man. Thor, not as buff as he is now. But then in the back of Thor, Jack Kirby started doing these Tales of Asgard, which I didn't know if there was any, like I said, any other mythology other than Greek and Roman. So suddenly here's these mighty warriors going to doom and destruction, and at 14 and 15, that's perfect. So I read lots of them and went to the library and found more stories about them. And at the same time, in the newspaper, one Sunday there was an article about 4 artists in Richmond, Virginia. We're about 2 hours from Richmond, Virginia. And I saw this. Here are the artists. This Steve Hickman, who's a really famous book jacket artist. Michael Kaluta, who was my roommate at one point, and Steve Harper. And there were 4 artists, young artists, and they were drawing comic books. And I tried so desperately to get my dad to drive me to Richmond and find them. You know, what do? Drive up and down the street going, hey, where are you? But later on, I met them at VCU, and like I said, became roommates with Caluto for 12 years. That's kind of interesting. At the same time, there's this magazine, kind of a silly magazine. But in it, they would publish these one-offs. So there was this artist, Harry Clark. But there's no way to find anything more about him. It's just that I like that one. This was on the back cover one time. Hannes Bach is who it is. Virgil Finland, another amazing artist. Oop. Hey yourself. This is an advertisement for a story that was being serialized. An artist named George Barr. But again, it was really frustrating of not being able to go anywhere, not being able to do anything else about these artists. Then I saw Aubrey Beardsley. This was a drawing that was in that magazine. And then, oh, that's the way it goes. I swiped him. He's over there on the left.
Oh.
You know, and then put a wizard in with really short legs. I did that on purpose, you know. Again, this was in a horror comic, but it was a sword and sorcery story. I was like, got really excited. Flash Gordon, they reprinted them. This is from the 40s. Is this the one that? Yes. Which to me this meant a whole lot when I read it at 15 or whatever, and now I just laugh. But men must adventure, and women must weep. Yeah, there you go. But I swiped her. This is a drawing I did in high school on a piece of mat board because I couldn't find any paper big enough. And that seemed like it was. And it was bumpy, but it still worked out pretty good. So that's that. The knight is swiped from that story, The Ogre's Tale, and the woman is Dale Arden. So then I made up a little dragon down there on the right. And this is the first art book I ever saw that I wanted to buy, Aubrey Beardsley. It was pretty amazing. A lot of yards to be able to afford that. In the high school library, I found this book, this art. I stared at this for hours and hours. And I really liked the writing. I read a lot of Andrea Norton's stories. She was really quite a writer. And then at a retreat in Montreat, North Carolina, in the little recreation room, there's a bunch of LPs, and one of them was this one, and it was Joan Baez she was reading poetry, all sorts of bizarre pieces that I loved. And this came out, and I was in senior in high school, and it came out, and I had enough money to buy the first book, and not enough money to buy the next two. And my brother bought them for me for my Christmas present, but I had to wait 2 months to find out the story. And then after Christmas, nobody saw me in that house. I was in the room, I was reading those books. And it's still fascinating. I don't know what these have to do much with Lord of the Rings, but I find them really fascinating, the art. Her last name was Remington, but I can't remember her first. This is high school. This is again on the yellow Sears paper that I made whiter with the Photoshop, with the brush, cut down the little bristles. I was not a very good letterer, but it was. At the same time, there was a Lynn Carter who wrote a lot of Robert E. Howard Conan pastiches, which were not good, but he was an editor and he put out a lot of books. And I realized that you could have a fantasy world that wasn't all about sweaty barbarians and scantily clad women. And it was, changed my life. These are really funny, droll stories about a Chinese detective. And there's all sorts of hidden messages in them. A telling of the Welsh Mabinogion. Great, she's a really good writer. James Branch Cabell, who I worked at the James Branch Cabell Memorial Library in Richmond, Virginia when I was in school. I'd gone to school, DCU, worked there, and they had a little Cabell room upstairs and a lot of books that were fun to look at. Now, the library had been built to be one story, but it was built so that it could be added onto. So it's 4 stories now, and they have a recreation of Cabell's library with the actual books from his library in it. So he was very well known. He was one of the first authors to be taken before the Supreme Court for obscenity, and the obscenities were. People were enjoying themselves at night, but it was a lot of sacrilegious stuff in there. People didn't like that. So he became really well known, and he got books and letters and all sorts of stuff from Scott Fitzgerald and all those writers. And the books have those letters stuck away in them. So you're in the library and you can open it up, and there's probably a photocopy or a facsimile of the letter. It's very interesting. And here we go, 1970. I'm in an art contest. I win a $15 gift certificate at the local record store. I go in there and I go, okay, at the time, album cost about $3.99, say. And I thought I could get 2 albums of Moody Blues, who were my favorite at the time. And then one that I didn't know anything about. I should do that. So I went looking, and I finally came upon this album. He used Albrecht Dürer, who's a pretty well-known fine artist, and it had some cool titles in the end. And I went, well, I wonder what that's like. So I got that one, the third one, and this was a life changer because I realized that there were songs. I wanted to draw every one of those songs. One of them takes up the whole side, Jack O'Ryan. Because in LP, you flip it over. You got the whole other side. But it took, again, because there was no internet, I didn't have any friends that liked balladry. It took years and years and years to find more of it that I wanted to hear. Pentangle is really well known in the late 60s, 70s, some of them are still around, and it was folk rock, but also jazz roots. It's very interesting. Then there's a girlfriend in college gave me a copy of this, her inscription of, "May you always stay where the wild things are." And these started coming out in the early 70s. So Maxfield Parrish, Howard Pyle, these are all American illustrators from the turn of the century or later. N.C. Wyeth, just magnificent oil paintings. If you go up to the Delaware Art Museum with the Brandywine, you can see the originals. And then there was Arthur Rackham. I discovered Arthur Rackham about that time. He became probably the most influential artist in my universe, and still is to a great deal. Also, a few years later, I discovered John Bauer, who's a Swedish illustrator. My wife and I went to Sweden and went to the John Bauer Museum and walked the John Bauer Trail. And it was incredibly popular in Sweden at 1920s, 30s. And then he and his wife and son were on a boat crossing the giant lake that's in Sweden, and a storm came up and they sank and they died. This is me back in college. If I put a figure in a piece, I was laughed at in the class. It became narrative. They didn't want narrative. I was in fine arts. I started in commercial art, and I realized it was going to be 4 years of learning how to do hand paste up. And I don't know if any of you have done that, but you don't want to do it. Not at all. So I switched to fine arts, and then I did a lot of very surreal landscapes, thinking of my comic book roots and Crazy Cat. There's a piece, I think I did this right after I graduated, trying to get back into outright fantasy. I think it's When Granny Goodwitch Comes Knocking on Your Door. This was edited by Terry Winley, who became a really good friend. Lots of books, stories in there that I followed up on. I moved to New York City. My Michael Kaluta, the artist I was showing you in that photo, he had gone to school at VCU, or it was RPI then, and he would come back. He liked Richmond girls a lot, so he'd come back and sit and watch them, go out with them. And he needed a roommate in New York, and I just piled everything I could into a station wagon and drove it up to New York and hauled it up 4 flights of stairs. There it was. This was inspired by a book, Red Moon, Black Mountain. It was for nothing other than my own pleasure. At one point, Heavy Metal magazine wanted to use it as a cover, but they wanted me to repaint the woman's face. And I was very satisfied with this face, so I said no. A few years later, I was doing work for Marvel. I did some Spider-Man and drew a Spider-Man graphic novel called Spirits of the Earth. I sent it to Scotland. Because I wanted him out of New York City. I didn't want to draw too many windows. After a while, there was a lot of windows. So I thought it'd be interesting to put him in a place where he can't really swing away from whatever's out to harm him. At the same time, this is 1988. I met my wife. We're going to be married. We're moving out of New York City. So I'm packing up all that life, 12 years of New York City. We're moving upstate New York, and I'm illustrating A Midsummer Night's Dream for a small publisher who wasn't paying me a whole lot of money, but I was going to do whatever I wanted to do. So it was really, at first this publisher wanted me to do a graphic novel of an adaptation of A Midsummer, and I was, wherever I was had my yellow magic marker, and I was editing William Shakespeare. And thinking, I'm an idiot. Why am I getting rid of all the poetry? That's the fun part. So I talked him into doing the book, the full text. And here's a little more text. This is for a comic called The Sandman that was turned into a Netflix TV series. This is Puck. This was a Midsummer Night's Dream. This is the Sandman has led Willie Shakespeare and the real Titania, Puck, and Oberon to this glade, and they performed the play for the very first time. There's also these are covers for the Swamp Thing comic book. But if you know anything about mythology, there's a character called the Green Man, and that's really what I was painting. And Stardust, this was also with Neil, and this is an idea he had. He said, what if we did this as a book? So 175 pages, paintings later, it became a book, and then it became a movie, all sorts of stuff. This is with Jane Yolen, and this is a ballad. This is King Henry. The ballad is a generic King Henry, but she made it in Henry VIII. And this is Anne Boleyn, first meeting. and she caught, when I was first asking the various writers if they got the ballad, I sent out a perspective to them. And about 3 days later, I heard from Jane going, "Hello, Charles, this is a great idea. Has anyone got King Henry?" I went, "No." I said, "Good, I'm halfway through. Talk to you later." And 2 days later, she went, "I'm done. Have you got a fax machine?" And boom, here it came. It was great. Jane Yolen is mostly a children's book writer, and she's probably written maybe 350, 400 of children's books.
Wow.
This is another poem that I illustrated from Neil, but I just seen the movie Wheel Rider, which I haven't even seen, but it's a beautiful film. And I used it, I realized I could use it, and I'll play with it. Another book called Instructions I did with Neil. This was a piece I had on my drawing. Actually, I didn't. I had art on my drawing board, and I heard that Ray Bradbury had passed away. I went, okay, pushed all that to the side and just drew something I wanted to draw. And this is what came out. This is up in Abington. I'm assuming most of you might have seen this. It's a 16-foot tall Titania and Puck and fairies and animals. It's a water feature in Abington. And she's got lots of hair. You know, I always like to draw it, but I sure don't want to have to comb it. This was a short story illustrated. Gregory Maguire, who did Wicked, wrote Wicked. This was one of his short stories. This is the Kai Lung painting. The book cover I was showing earlier is just me illustrating one of them. The Corn King, which everything there except the person is from our yard on Rich Valley Road. This is 4 by 8 foot. It's just a piece I wanted to do. The young man on the deer is Liam, my nephew, who is now 25. And anytime I pointed out that that's him, he said, "Uncle Charles, I never rode on the back of a deer." I understand that. Piece I did for myself. It's the Earth Mother teaching a young child how to make new worlds out of old. This is the Ursula Le Guin. It's the end paper design for it. This is from the Earthsea. It's one of the drawings. There's a few dragons in it. This is so I worked for 4 years on this book. There's 50 black and white, 6 colors, a lot of things. I worked with the writer, Ursula. We spent a lot of time deciding what her dragon would look like. And I got it done, and the whole idea was that once I got it done, I was going to fly out to Portland and show it all to her. And she passed away before I could do that. So, you know, you're packing away 4 years, you're packing it away, you know, you're sad that don't have it anymore, but it's done. And then my editor called me up and went, "Well, Charles," they were going through her papers, and they found this short story, really a final story for Earthsea, and we'd like you to illustrate it. So this is the illustration for that. And one of the reasons I put all the way through all the 6 books, which were written over about a 50-year period, she would keep mentioning a thistle and various things. And to me, the thistle became Ursula. It was bright and beautiful, but you go too close and it's going to prick you. So this is this Ged on his boat going into the darkness of the afterlife and thistle. Colored pencil for a children's picture book. A bit more. I tried to put in my comic book panels, make some movement. I like owls. This is I'm calling the Parliament. A lot of owls. Oh. Also like ravens. This is a cover for Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. This one, I realized I wanted to draw it, and I was starting to look up a Google search, the York Cathedral, York Minster Cathedral in England. And then I realized that I've been reading Facebook, and my friend John was in York visiting, and he said, "You want me to go over there and take some pictures?" Like, oh yeah. So the painting is from him, from his photographs. There's a crazy old woman who wants to be a cat and becomes one. The ship's made out of rain. The Raven King is up there. Sandman with Midsummer Night's Dream. This is from my latest book. It just came out about 2 weeks ago from the Folio Society. It's a young woman in the early 1800s, and she encounters Mrs. Mab and her troop of fairies. And these are the ladies of Grace Adieu. This was fun. I got it done. It actually doesn't look like, the original doesn't look like this because there's a different building in it back there. And I sent it in, and I got a note back from the publisher going, well, you know, Susanna said that looked like it was too Victorian looking and it needed to look more stone-like. So I did a little tiny drawing of it, and they photoshopped it in. But whenever I exhibit the painting, it will have the original in there because I'm not going to paste this down on it. Oh, and there you go.
Oh.
There you go. It looks very nice. They did a great job on it, and it's on thicker paper than it's usually been on. So that was really fun to do. I love that. Love the festival. So. And that's it.
Thank you, Charles. And now, as promised, you will have a chance to ask your questions as well. But to kick us off, I actually have a question, if you don't mind if I go first. So, Charles, I'd like to just ask about the Book of Ballads project specifically, but what made you want to do an artist and author approach to that book, and what was the artistic process like when you were putting that together?
Well, Heavy Metal magazine asked me if I wanted to do a story for them. So I asked my friend Charles Salent, who I'd done a number of books and things with, and really good friends with. And he, when he sent me the script, it was an adaptation of the English ballad Sauvé, which is about a woman who cross-dresses because she's thinks her husband is playing around on her and she wants to find out for sure. And it wasn't sexy enough for heavy metal, but I loved it. And I read it, I went, oh, the ballads, I could draw them all because I love the ballads, and I listen to them a whole lot. When I have a working CD player, I listen to them a lot. And but I don't sing, and I don't play an instrument, and you really wouldn't want to hear either one of those things from me. But I do draw, and I realized I could draw to contribute to the tradition of the ballads. So that gave me the idea of that, and I came up with a list of a bunch of different writers that I knew were interested in balladry, and sent perspectives off to them, and I think there was only one or two that didn't respond, but most of them did. And that's how it started. And I had to let them all know, because as writers, none of them had written, not many of them had written comic books before. And they would send me a page script, and they would have panel 1. Man says goodbye to his wife, turns and goes out the door. And you're like, you can't do that in one panel. And I had to explain that to everyone, and after a while they were like, okay, we trust you, you do the layouts, and just keep our script. So, and everybody was pretty happy.
Wonderful. All right, so by show of hands, I'll try to make sure I come around to as many people as possible, but who has a question for Charles?
So how did you end up in Bristol?
That'd be my wife's fault. So we moved out of New York City, we got married, we were living in upstate New York. It was nice, but boy, were the winters long and the ice storms, oh my God. So we decided to move down south. Well, actually, we tried to buy a house in upstate New York. IBM was still in business at the time, and we would go to places in the middle of nowhere, the house that literally had a roof falling in. I mean, big house, roof down. Rain had been in there, all the animals had been in there. And you'd ask the real estate agent, and they go, oh, that's $350,000. That's cheaper than most of the other houses. And after a while, we realized we can't afford to live there. And the winters were long. So we decided we moved down south, and I'm from Lynchburg, Virginia, and Karen family is from Bristol. And we would come down to, for Christmas, it's a 13-hour drive from where we were. Come down for Christmas, and one of those Christmases, she said, well, let's go to Abington. You haven't seen Abington. So we went there, and we might have discovered the Starving Artist Cafe and all that kind of stuff. And it was like, and we could afford to buy. I'd done this Spider-Man graphic novel. It was going to give me a big chunk of money, because as a freelance artist, you have no bank credibility. And so I needed to have a big check that I could get, give them. So, and we looked around, and we could find we found a 2-story farmhouse with lots of little buildings and 25 acres for $70,000. So we did.
I hesitate to even think what that would be today.
Yeah.
I think I saw another hand over here.
I have always really enjoyed Maxwell Parrish, and I would be interested to know kind of the effect he had for you and kind of inspirations that you may have got from him. Really, that would be very accomplished.
Well, his Maxwell Parrish's color, and there's some of it that's sort of transcendent. But he's also one of those artists that was hugely influential in my 20s and 30s, maybe into my 40s, but has kind of fallen by the way in my mind. I still am aware that they're really good. It's like Frank Frazetta. He's really good, but he doesn't influence anything to do with my life at this point. And some artists stick with you, and some of them fall away. And I did see, about 10 or 15 years ago, I saw an exhibition of his work in San Diego, and it's really stunning. It's amazing, but it's a little too stiff, maybe. I want, just more fluidity, that's the word, so.
Thank you. On the subject of that fluidity, one of the things I was really struck by looking at all your influences was there was no Art Nouveau. And I was just absolutely struck by that.
Well, there needed to be an F on Smuka, but it's not in there right now.
Oh, okay.
Things come and go.
Okay.
Much more Art Nouveau than Art Deco. Art Deco is a little too stacked for me, but Muka is an amazing artist.
Yeah. I was also really struck, I feel like a fool. Today was the first day I found out that you illustrated Spider-Man.
Oh, well, there you go. I did a couple covers, and as some people in this room can vouch for, people really love their Spider-Man and they want more of it. And I'm constantly, if I go to a comic book convention, I'm constantly asked, when am I going to do another Spider-Man story? The answer is never. I did it. And I'm really proud of the one I did, and I don't need to do more of them. So,
Thank you.
you're welcome. I just want to make you go up and down those stairs.
This is my exercise
Oh,
today.
God, I was gonna say.
Charles, when I look at your work, I just think of all of the creatures and the people and I just think, how did he find all of these to draw? I mean, you can't just say an owl and make it up. I mean, you can in a way. I've
Yeah.
done it a lot, but could you just comment on how you find source material and make it all seem like it belongs in one piece, in one image?
Any number of those artists there did lots of grotesques, is what I would say, and I respond to those. Arthur Rackham, John Bauer, there's other people I didn't show. And the thing I learned, and this was after the statue, the 16-foot Titania, was 3 years of my life. I might have drawn once or twice during those 3 years. And that would have been a ballpoint pen, little scribble thing to explain how to do something. And I started wondering when I got down to near the end of it and we were dedicating the statue, and I was like, I'm gonna have to go back to my studio, aren't I? I'm gonna have to draw, and I wonder what was gonna happen. And for whatever reason, yes. Whereas before I was drawing like this and putting the pen nib into the paper and drawing really hard into it. For some reason afterwards, I did it with the side of my and would draw like this, and I got all the movement I ever wanted and all the little scribbly stuff. It was only later, when you want a little face or something, you go down, you go and do that, and that changed everything I ever drew. And it was just that simple.
So a little face.
A little face.
So a little face, you say.
Yeah.
Well, how do you find that little face? Are you always making it? What? You
All
must
the
have-
movies I've watched, all the art I've looked at.
Yeah.
There were, when I was growing up, there was a movie, there were a number of movies that I think the local TV channel must have owned, because they showed them like every month. And one of them was, what's the name of that? And it turns out it's a Russian film. And it's in incredible color, but of course I saw it in black and white. And there was little imps and demons, and there was a wind demon that its cheeks would get really big and it would blow, and then the rubber trees would bend over from the wind. And all those characters out of that, they were just remarkable. And it just stuck with me. And so you look at a piece and you don't really look at what's in front, you look around the back. Lots of characters in there.
You stayed up here.
Charles, I never really was into fantasy artwork, but I certainly have a new appreciation after viewing these slides you have. You and I are about the same age, and I was heavily into Art Crumb and Zap comics.
Yeah.
And I'd love to know if you ever get into any of that stuff in the old days.
Yes, I have a pile of underground comics, and Crumb is a sort of favorite. He's such a weird human being. I went, there was a Robert Crumb documentary on him, what, 10 or 15 years ago? And it was a whole bunch of us at San Diego Comic-Con went to see it, and everyone but me had grown up around Robert Crumb. So there was lots of comments about, he wouldn't have said that, he didn't do that, he did all that, and that was really fascinating. He's a strange creature. But there's sketchbooks, a couple of sketchbooks that are pretty amazing. And he's got his villa, not a villa, but wherever he lives in France. And I don't know if you've seen it, but he actually did a graphic novel adaptation of the Book of Genesis. And it's pretty amazing, I have to say. But all the underground, and I met a lot of those air pirate, Sherry Flanagan and Bobby London and all those people at San Diego Comic-Con, so Dan O'Neill. They were pretty alternative, shall we say.
So, what did your parents think of your talent? Did they encourage you, and did they live to see you
When you
successful?
grow up, you're going to get rid of all those comic books.
Is that what they said?
Yes.
But they sent you to art school,
Yes. Well,
more or
we
less.
took out a loan, and they just said yes. Go ahead. And the biggest thing that, like I said, when I was, I went in taking the commercial art department. And when I realized it was absolutely not what I wanted, I was going to switch to, and commercial art at least was marginally, you can get a job from. But I wanted to switch into fine arts, and I went, well, there's no excuse for that. But they, I called them up and told them what I was thinking about, and they were like, well, that was fine, dear, if that's what you want to do. They were very supportive always. And my dad was in the group called the Civitans, and he was one of the secretaries or whatever. And he gave me all this paper, and I have, my very earliest comic strips, which was called A-Man. He was Atomic Man, and he had glowing hands, glowing feet, and a glowing head. So you didn't have to draw anything. He went around bopping crooks on the head. But it was drawn on the back of the Civitan paper in a couple hours on a Saturday morning.
And they named you?
Oh, well, yes. So I go to college, I'm in the bookstore, I'm looking at all these books, and I see a book on an artist named Charles Dana Gibson. My name is Charles Dana Vess. I went, whoa, and I pulled it out, and he's just amazing pen and ink artist, just amazing. And so I went home, and next time I was home, and I asked them about it, and they were like, yes, we didn't want to do a family name, so we liked him, and then there was an actor, Dana Andrews, and so you're named after that. Whoa! Wow. Those pen and inks are amazing. He did the Gibson Girl, and everybody in fashionable United States was dressed like a Gibson Girl for 10 years or so. So you had something.
This is a follow-up from the inspiration-related questions. At what point in your own development as an artist, or do you ever become your own inspiration for your work?
there's a lot of pieces I like and there's a lot of pieces I don't like, and you always try to learn something from what you've done, and then you print something, or especially nowadays on Facebook, and someone will come up with a drawing that you did 30 years ago. That could be better, but it's just the way it is. You just shrug and let it go. You just learn from your mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. So, what is it? Make a happy accident. A lot of times a drawing, I'll be doing something and I want this, and you put a line down that suggests something else, and then you follow what that suggests, and it becomes a completely different piece, and a much better piece, because it's from somewhere down in there, instead of, oh, I'll just do a happy frog or whatever. So the more mistakes, the better. Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Hi. One of my favorite things that you worked on is the book, The Fairy Reel.
Yes.
Could you talk about that a little bit?
Well, that was, I was friends by then with one of the editors, Terry Windling. I also knew the editor, or publisher of it. And they were looking for some way, they were going to do a whole series of collected anthologies based on folklore. And they wanted a unifying element, so they got me to illustrate all of them. And being gung-ho and 20 years younger, I did way more work than they were paying for. And the books look really nice. Some of them won some awards. And as they kept going, they kept adding more stories. At the beginning, I was doing a drawing for every story. And the last book was called, there was The Green Man, Fairy Reel, Coyote Road, and The Beastly Bride. I think that's it. And The Beastly Bride had more stories and less pay. We had a talk. So, but they were really fun to work with, and I love, Terry's a really good friend. She's got a great book called The Wood Wife. If you want to read a really nice novel, that's one.
Thank you.
I'm curious about how you decide when to put color into one of your works.
It's just like when they're paying me. Really. And you think of it, you're going to do these, when you're illustrating books, and some of them are going to be in color, you draw it differently. You don't have to put as many lines. You might be thinking you're going to have a gradation of color, whereas black and white, you have to cross-hatch or do something other. So it's really a different way of thinking about each piece like that.
Hello, Charles.
Yeah, you can hear me without the microphone.
But anyway, Charles, I'm curious, to what extent, if at all, do you see what you're going to draw in your mind before you draw it?
Usually it's an idea that I have in my mind. I'm not going to see the drawing. I know sort of what I want to have done, and then hope that the eraser will help me get there. I'm, a lot of times they'll be very, very different. Although lately I've been doing all these commissions, and I just came upon all the 8x10 typewriter paper, ballpoint pens of the idea of each one of them. And you just try and keep them loose, interesting, and have fun. So.
Vess?
Okay. Oh.
So, what work or body of work are you the most proud of?
There's lots of them. Jonathan's Transmiss and Gnarl, the Peter Pan that I did, Stardust, the Book of Ballads. You know, there's all different approaches. You know, that has lots of different styles of pen lines, and you know, I was working in being color, so that you do them a different way. And it's just, you know, sometimes you see something, you know, I go to these conventions and people bring up stuff that, you know, 40 years ago you did this, or 30 years ago. And sometimes it's like exciting, and sometimes it's like, oh, I wish I hadn't done that. You know, but it's okay, you know. It's you need to have as many mistakes out there as good pieces. So.
How big is the original artwork for the poster?
It's smaller than that. It is smaller than the other posters. So the other posters are 18 by 24, so this is probably 16 high by 12 across.
Is it available for purchase?
It will be, yes.
The poster will be officially unveiled next week, May 27th, and on sale after that. You all got a sneak peek tonight with Charles. Looks like there were two on the front row.
Charles, we're here at the Birthplace of Country Music Hall of Fame. We're celebrating an exhibit with your ballad artwork, which is incredible. I've been a fan of yours for 40-some years, it feels like, and as I look back, why did I fall in love with Charles's art so early in my life? And the thing that really, over the years, is how musical your artwork really is. It's very lyrical. It's got dynamics, contrast. It's got attention to detail. It has a much bigger picture. It has a theme that runs throughout the work. You spoke a little bit about, you know, just some of the album artwork, some of the music that you were drawn to. How does music influence you today? Do you listen to music when you paint, you draw? Do you?
When I have a CD player that works.
Yeah. Talk to us a little bit about that, because you know, if we go out and look at your exhibit, you know, every single one of those ballads has a completely different vibe to it, which is amazing.
Well, that is because as I was doing them, I realized that really the ultimate transmutation of it all would be to collect it. And if every one of those was drawn exactly the same, then they would really be really boring. But also, every one of the stories are very different. So I was trying to respond to the story. Some of them were pretty dark and dense, and some were goofy. You know, the Galtee Farmer was just a hoot to draw. And it was also, you know, the people you're working with, and what the script was like. With everyone else, they were, you know, strictly writers. With Jeff Smith, who wrote the script for Galtee Farmer, he's an artist, and the way he writes is he puts the word balloons in and the characters, and it just scribbles, but they're there, and you have to respond to it a different way than having a sheet of typed words. Going, oh, that can't all be in one panel. But this one, Jeff knew what needed to be in each one of them. It was really fun. So, but yes, I love to put music on. A lot of times I try to have something that's sort of like what I might feel like. You know, a lot of Irish music, a lot of Scottish, a lot of listen to a lot of different kinds of music, and then you get inspired. You know, I can remember being at Rhythm and Roots, and Karen and I were walking from one place to another, and we were going through, I think it was 6th Street, and we went, well, let's stop and listen to them for, you know, one song. They're the entire set, you know, because we're like, oh my God, they're really good. And they were the, wayfaring,
Way down one.
Way Down Wanderers. And we've seen them multiple times since. They're really fun. And it, and that's just the way you can do with all the different stages. And sometimes there'll be someone you've never heard of before, but you're like, oh my God, that's really good. And it, when it answers some need inside of you, then you respond to it. You can draw from it.
The Book of Ballads is a fascinating project, and obviously something seemingly somewhat different than what you've done before. Are there some projects or things that you're looking at in the future that you really want to do that maybe you haven't done, or a reprise of something you have done?
I have a couple in progress ideas, one of which is a graphic novel. I've got 40 pages of it sort of sketched out. And then I'll have another middle grade novel that is text, graphic narrative, and single illustrations, all to tell the story. So when you have a scene that has a lot of action in it, then I will draw it. And then when there are people talking, it's just text. And I've had it around quite a while, and I showed it to some editors, and you can just see the panic in their eyes. How would we market this? We can never market this. They never think, is this good? It's like, can you market it? Mm-hmm. So we'll see if they ever get done. There's books that I would like to illustrate, but other people have been giving them. Doing these limited edition books are beautiful when they come. I would never be able to afford them myself, but they've become really popular and they sell out really quickly. So more and more of them are being done. There's more and more publishers. So there's 2 or 3 books that have gotten away, which is too bad. I would love to do. That King of Elfland's Daughter is a beautiful book, beautiful novel, and other things like that. There's one a book called The Bloody Chamber by Angela Carter, and it's retellings of folk tales from a woman's or feminist viewpoint, and she didn't change the story. She just changes how she tells it, and they're really I don't know what my pictures would look like for it. I have no idea, which is why I like the idea of it, because it's scary. But we'll see. Maybe I'll just have to start doing it someday.
Anyone else? We have time for a few more.
Unlike some people, I didn't discover you 40 years ago, but in early 2000s, I stumbled across a circle of cats, and I was hooked. It was like a drug, and so I've followed you ever since. But I'm just curious right now, how did you do in the Hallmark contest?
You never hear anything from it. No, and nowadays when I think about it, are you kidding? But I would love to have been a fly on the wall. Just really, what kind of comments would have happened? So, when you're young, you think whatever you do is going to be great. And it's not always the case. Anyway.
I was just wondering, out of curiosity, you talk about, or you've shown a bunch of pieces that are quite large. You've got 4x8s, 4x6. You've got a lot of large pieces that you've done. And what I noticed today that I hadn't really heard you say before was that most of those were done when you had, well, you know what, I'm just going to make something for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so I seem to notice that you like working in scale when you are creating something personal. When's the next large piece?
When's the next large piece? Oh, well, I decided I'm not gonna go to this convention in June, I'm gonna stay out of Maine. There's ideas floating around that I have to go after at some point, so. I've got a nice big studio I can do it in. So. Okay, I think that's it.
Any other questions? That looks like it might be it. Well, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Thank you, Charles and Stephanie. Hope you all have enjoyed the program tonight. I would just like to say one more time that we are grateful to the United Companies Foundation for their support of our programming here at the museum. If you have enjoyed the evening as well, please consider leaving a donation. There's a tip jar on the case right outside the theater. All proceeds from the evening will go toward supporting future free and low-cost programming like this at the Birthplace of Country Music Museum. Thank you all for coming out, and I would just like to plug for a moment, if you will let me, some of our other upcoming events that you can attend in the future. We have on May 23rd, that's this Saturday, our monthly Bluegrass Jam. It's every month on the fourth Saturday from 3 to 5 o'clock. It is free to participate. They welcome all skill levels, and you can also just come and listen if you just want to listen to some other folks jam if you're not a musician yourself. On June 5th, that's the Friday after next, first Friday of the month is our Museum Storytime program. This month the theme is Start Your Engines. And then on Saturday, June 6th, we have the Smithsonian Channel screening of She the People, Votes for Women. That's a Smithsonian Channel documentary. And then on June 9th, that's a Tuesday at 7 p.m. is our next speaker session with KT Van Dyke. He is a local luthier, and he's going to talk about what that means and some of the work that he's done. And then on Saturday, June 20th, we'll be line dancing with the Bristol Ballet at the Bristol Ballet Studio, led by line dancing with Carla. If you know her, she's done a lot of line dancing in the area, and she's wonderful, so come on out and join us for that. And thank you, Charles, so much for being here tonight.
I have one thing I want to say.
Oh, sure.
Just a recommendation, and I have nothing to do with this. On PBS, there's a documentary called Wilding, and it's about a couple in England that let their land go back to being wild. And it's a beautiful, beautiful documentary. I've read the book years ago, but I was really surprised they'd done a documentary of it. And Karen and I watched it the other night. It was really nice, really beautifully done. And it's on PBS, so go watch it.